afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right. This is welcome to the forum. Today I'm going to introduce the serial entrepreneur, Samantha Simon. And she is, now this is not a serial killer, this is a serial entrepreneur.
I'm picking up.
So she's, and I'm going to turn the time over to her because we've been sitting here chatting, and what she has to say is far more important than what I have to say. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn the time over to the serial entrepreneur. Give her a hand.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited to be here today with you guys. I've actually had the opportunity, which I feel very blessed about, to come to this class for over a decade, and I missed last year. I was like, what happened? So I moved. Some different things happened in my life. I was like, wait a minute, why didn't they call? And so I connected with new teachers this year, new professors, and I'm really happy to be back because these are some of my stomping grounds. I attended Slick College after I got out of high school and did my general ed here, then continued on to the U afterwards and got a degree in Spanish. But what I want to do today is if you have questions, I really want you just to ask, because the big thing from me back then to me now is a little bit more information in my head, a little bit more experience about business. And back then I was probably as enthusiastic as I am now, but I didn't really know what to do or how to do it. And so please ask anytime, any question. I'll give you a little background about 3 businesses that I've been involved in. I've done a variety of other things, but 3 core businesses that I've really enjoyed doing. And then I would also like to know a little bit about you guys. So be ready when I ask you some questions. So, you know, get on that too. So let's see if this actually works from this distance. There we go. There are 5 topics after I give you some information about myself and the 3 businesses. There we go. These are the topics that we'll cover, and I think that will be really helpful. Often we can give advice and information and direction, but for me, I really want to give you information that I have experience with and not just some kind of theory. So I'm very careful, and part of my ideology and part of the way I do things now is only give advice in areas that you actually have the experience to do so. And so that's really key. So I've chose 5 topics that I think I can give you some meat today, all right? And I'll repeat this list again because I'm sure you want to have it on your notes, but it'll be repeated 4 times at least through the presentation. So way back when I was going to Salt Lake Community College, I decided to give college a break, and I ran off to go do a business in Camas, Utah. Has anyone been up on Mirror Lake Highway before? Okay, a few of you have been up there. Well, Samak is Camas spelled backwards. And it's up on Mirror Lake Highway, and I ran a little country store up in the mountains with my dogs. I made beef jerky, if it can be more stereotypical. I had gift baskets. One of my big breakthroughs was the Gabby Gourmet, who's now retired, but he came in my store, and I didn't know he had come in the store, and bought some jerky, and someone called me and said, Sam, you're on TV? And I said, no, I'm in the smokehouse. And they said, no, you're jerky. Someone's talking about how good the jerky is on TV. And I ran in and turned on, I believe he was Channel 5. And I was like, that's my jerky. And I was so excited because he was saying it was the best he'd ever had. And I used that marketing that over and over and over. Now, one interesting thing about running a store, especially when you make beef jerky, there is fire and smoke. So, you know, I'm in my early 20s, and I'm learning how to run a business. I'm learning how to open a store, buy products, do marketing, create other products, not just jerky. And so I had all these things I was trying to do at the same time. And so I hired some help. I hired these nice folks, Camas folks. Lloyd, he was part of the wrestling team in high school. No Neck, you know those guys? He's like, I'm here to make jerky. I'm like, can you put your arms down? He says, no, I can't put my arms down. And so he would help me do jerky. And then I had a couple other nice ladies that, you know, wanted a part-time job. And what was funny is one day in the mountains is the storms would be really big up in the canyon. And one day it was exceptionally loud, and I could hear the lightning coming up over the hills. And I was like, I was on my little PC back then, the dinosaur I had, and I was doing some accounting in QuickBooks. See, they had that back then too. So I was doing my QuickBooks, but I looked, I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to get the computer off, because we would get hit, you know, or things would happen with power surges, my computer will fry. So I'm trying to save and exit as I see the storm and hear it coming closer and closer. And so what happened is I was in my house. I was looking out the glass doors. I had a house, a store, and the smokehouse, and a small apartment I had built on the end. It was about an acre. So I was looking out the window at the store, and I got hit directly. The store got hit by a lightning bolt. True story. So it hit this back part of the store, and we were on the hill. It was a really weird place to be hit. And I've never seen a brighter flash of light in my entire life. So I go running over to the smokehouse. I pass the store because I hear someone screaming, "Fire, fire, fire." And I had never trained. We'd never done fire exercises. It's a little store in the middle of nowhere. And I go over to the smokehouse, and there's a vent at the top, and flames are shooting out of it. So I had fire extinguishers, and I'm under my arm, and I turn off the power, and I spray everything, and then I think, oh my gosh, it hit the store. So I go running back to the store. And Lloyd, no neck, he's in this little tiny store, not even much bigger than this room. He's running around, he goes, "I gotta call my wife." And I'm like, "Lloyd, stop, where's Marge? Where is she? Oh my, I gotta call." So I run back in the back room, and Marge is kind of sitting down on the floor. And I'm like, and she had touched a metal stainless steel refrigerator unit we had at the moment the lightning bolt hit. And she couldn't get off because it went through all the GFIs and all the electrical wiring in the store. So she was connected to the current, indirectly hit by lightning. So she's like, until the actual GFIs lit on fire because it was so much energy, and then the connection disengaged. So I sat her down, checked on Lloyd. He was just, "Go call your wife." And so often things can happen in business you have no idea about. And so jerky, I didn't know it could be something dangerous. It could also be something very exciting. But that day we talked about for years. And oddly enough, I have to say, Marge, she was much nicer after that. Much nicer as a person. So I enjoyed that business. I was there for 8 years. I got to see a lot of changes. When I bought it from some old guy and his wife, who used to think my name was Pam instead of Sam. She says, "Pam." And Arden's like, "Her name is Sam, Shirley. Gee, damn it, it's Sam." And then 10 minutes later, "Pam." So I bought it from them, and they had sold some products and some beer and smokes and worms, some funky little country store, and changed everything. But they were making about $20,000 a year. They were seasonal, so they board it up in the winter and leave. So I decided to go year-round and implemented gift baskets, a lot of other product lines, which I can show you afterwards if you're curious about that type of business, how to develop a product, how to do the packaging. But that I did for 8 years. And when I sold it, we were grossing about $200,000 a year. So nice growth. For a little country store and lifestyle, it was a pretty fantastic business. Next business I got into, which I kind of stumbled into, I said, "Hey, I'm selling my store to a friend. I'm going back to school. I'm going to finish my degree I hadn't finished." And I had found out there was this world of real estate investing back before, 2008, way back before that, when it was still hot and fantastic. And I thought, I've been working pretty hard. I think I'd like to try something new. And I like people, and I'm not afraid of going out and doing things. So I got into real estate investing. And if you don't notice, the hair evolves during the whole slide presentation. But this business, I would work hours and hours in the Samak business, hours, and work very, very, very hard. But in this business, I only had to make calls. Sometimes I would go to meetings. I would wear my taller shoes. And so then this business changed everything for me because I didn't have to work manually to make money. In fact, the range of business that I did in about 6.5, 7 years in this business, I would cash in checks anywhere as low as $5,000 on one house real estate deal, up to the largest check that I did on one deal, just under $90,000. And so I was like, wait a minute, I worked an entire year. I had employee fees I had to pay, employee hours. I had to buy meat to make beef jerky, and I'm making $200K, and now I work for 2 months on something, and I make a lot more. It was really life-changing for me. I really didn't have any idea that people made really good money versus worked really hard. But I loved it. It was also a lot of fun. I met a lot of very interesting people. And the big thing in this business is you really had to be educated. You needed to know what you were doing because it was very hard to understand how to do paperwork in real estate, making sure the HUD was done right, connecting with the right attorney or title company. So there, I needed to be more educated. So I ended up spending a lot more money on continued education that I didn't have to do in Camas. Camas, I just had to learn how to turn off the power so the fire turned out and check someone's pulse because they got hit by lightning. I mean, so it was a different kind of work, okay? There we go. Don't go. Ah, it paused. It paused. Then I couldn't help myself. I'm not energetic at all. You probably can't tell. But I thought, you know, I really want to do something that's been passionate to me and something very exciting. And I've always been an author, I mean, an illustrator or an artist. I've always enjoyed sketching and doing pictures. And so I thought, what the heck? I'm going to write a kid's book. And so I stepped out of real estate investing and I came back into something that was really important to me. When I was originally coming to Salt Lake Community College, I loved taking pottery, and I took karate classes, and I took art classes. You know, my dad was like, you know, when is the general ed going to happen? You know, I'm kind of writing some checks here. I'm like, but Dad, they have this great painting class. So I kind of came back to some things that were really important to me. Now, what inspired the book, Utah for Kids, is my nephew here, this little cute guy right here. When he was really little, we would spend many weekends together. We called them Freaky Fridays. He'd come up on these days and spend the weekend with me up in Park City. And we'd go on adventures. And so we kept doing all these really wild, fun adventures. And my neighbors started asking, what are you doing with Clyde this weekend? And I said, well, we're going to the Tracy Aviary. They have this new thing. They have the bird, the guy who does it on the hawks on the arm, and they fly, and it's really cool. And they go, well, what are you doing next weekend? I said, well, they're opening the new museum, the new Natural History Museum up by the U, which is no longer new, but it's so fantastic if you haven't gone. You know, or what else? We're going fossil hunting. Up at my old store in Camas, there's a vein of horn coral. I said, I'm going to take Clyde up, and we're going to go up and find the horn coral. And then I kept doing all these things, and people kept asking, and I said, wait a minute. I love marketing, and that's what I learned, especially in my days of being a jerky lady and also in real estate. Marketing is kind of important. It's like if you want to date someone, you got to market yourself properly, you know? So I was like, wait, I got an idea. People keep asking what I'm doing. Why don't we do a book? And I had about a dozen books I was playing with, you know, and I talked to some people, and I said, I think there's some merit in this idea. No one was doing it quite this way. I was really surprised about that, actually. So I did some homework, and I kept keeping notes of where we would go and take pictures of where we'd gone. So I had all this documentation that I could use as material. One of my favorite mentors I had in the real estate days, Dan Kennedy, he's fantastic if you want to learn more about marketing, pretty spectacular. I gave him a lot of money over the years, probably upwards of $40,000 for additional education. But he always said, never start a project with a blank notepad. And I'm like, what does that even mean? He goes, you got to have material. You got to have files or notes or pictures or something, a brochure. And when you start with stuff, and you can see by my table here, I like stuff. There's a way, and I'll show you some of the process that I do. There's a way to do a new project. And so I did a lot of homework. And so in 9 months, almost to the day, I always call it my baby, after research, writing, being specific about what I wanted the book to look like and what segments and categories I wanted to cover, I had my book ready. And I was ready to go to the publisher. And I was like, okay, I'm ready. And they said, well, it's nice you have all of these words and all of these pictures, but you got to put it in InDesign so we can print it. And I was like, oh, the graphic design. Are any of you guys graphic artists or graphic designers? Oh, wow, very cool. So I had to have this information all in the files that they could read. And I'm like, well, what does that cost? And he says, like, $3,000, $3,500. And I'm like, I didn't even plan that part of my budget. And because I had a Mac and I had InDesign on my computer, and I had paid for some programs during my real estate days. I thought, I can teach myself this. So I hired these nice kids that work at Staples, kind of the geeky kids. They're really smart, and I'm like, man, I wish it was like you. And I paid them 20 bucks an hour to meet me at a coffee shop to teach me how to use InDesign, because I was desperate. I mean, I had to have it ready, and I was ready to print the book. So it was a lot of fun. And one cute little story here about Clyde. When we started our adventures, he was little. You know how kids make up homemade words. He goes, Aunt Sam, I's wanna. And I'm like, is that in Africa? I don't understand. He goes, no, I's wanna do it again. I's wanna do it again. And so that was kind of the inspiration behind the book. And a lot of the media that I got afterwards was all tied into stories. It was all tied into how the book evolved and if the little illustrations that I drew. And I'll explain a little bit about that through the presentation, why they became so important to the overall marketing of the book itself. All right, now I'm going to ask you guys, we warmed it up a little bit. Why do you want to be an entrepreneur? Why do you want to go out in the world and maybe be a leader? Why do you want to, or maybe what types of businesses are you interested in? I would love a couple ideas. Mary Lynn?
I don't like to work for others. I want to do it myself. I'm a mom. I want to be at home with my kids and then just work when they're at school or work when they're doing things. I want to control my schedule, not be controlled by someone else's schedule.
I love that. She doesn't want to be controlled by other people's schedules. She wants to plan out her day so she can be with her kids when they're home, and when they're off doing their thing, you can do your thing. You want the flexibility of being self-employed. Now, I've been self-employed. I have to do the math. I think it's upwards of 18 years now. I've only had one job, regular job, in all of the 18 years when I worked at Deer Valley for a season for about 5 or 6 months so I could ski. And I'm like, the whole time I was working there, I'm like, I don't think I'm employee material. And they're like, wow, where do you get all your energy? And I'm like, let's get this done. And they're like, whoa, let's go to the break room. And so it's a different language. So some of us, it's a better fit to be self-employed. And the hours, setting your hours is beautiful. It's a fantastic, that's a very good point. Anyone else? You guys are a hard crowd. Wow, you're so loosened up. Anybody, okay, what businesses are you interested in? Writing? Writers, okay? Graphic, no, not graphic, artists. Consulting, maybe. Professional, let's see if we can come up with something. Professional resters. No one's gathering that. My friend said, I love food. I said, well, then do something with food. People pay people all the time to eat. And they're like, they'll pay me to eat? And I'm like, yeah, you know, and so there are connections, there are people that you can cross in your path, and I highly recommend, I'll hand out my card later, the people you start to get to know, the people you associate with will make all the difference, okay?
So Sam, what you're saying, it's all about relationships?
It has a lot to do with relationships, so much less about smarts, that's going to be my first story on your belief, okay? I'll give you guys.
Let me ask you this. How many of you have ever thought about opening your own restaurant?
Oh, restaurants, that's a good one.
Yeah, given that you go on and you say, hey, I've got a food that my mom taught me how to make and I could sell it. Is there any of you has that ever crossed your mind?
We got a few people.
Okay. Go ahead, tell us about it.
No, can you use the microphone, please? So we could get it up on camera.
Well, what Rick just said is the idea of what other businesses have you ever been interested in doing your own restaurant? Have you ever been interested in maybe cooking something your grandma or your mother has done? You know, I don't cook. It's funny, I ran a business and I made beef jerky and I did develop some recipes and I did them very well because I'm good with consistent structure. But to come up with a recipe, I'd rather go eat it. I'd rather be one talking about the flavors, you know. And so there are many different things in that business. Go ahead, Rick.
You've all got some kind of an idea of what you want to do, don't you? At some point. So let her know and talk about it. She's here to help you. Okay? Go for it.
He's so cute. Where do you guys get him? He's adorable. Can I have him? I'll take him home. We'll go find a good restaurant in Park City and let someone else cook. It's so fun. In fact, I know a really good restaurant in Park City if you want something different, not like Utah. Do you guys want to know? Okay, it's not cheap, so maybe go for appetizers. But it's really fantastic. It's called Reefs. Oh.
Called what?
Reefs, like the coral reef. It's so fantastic.
Is it like seafood or?
They do seafood, they do hummus, they do kind of a Middle Eastern menu, and it is so fun and so different. I went in there, I'm like, am I in Utah? It's so delicious. Okay, your beliefs. Okay, how many of you think you're smart? Thank goodness someone raised their hand. Okay. How many of you know you're smart, but you're really not that smart? Okay. When I got into real estate investing, one of my favorite things I first found out, because I go in, I'm like the jerky lady, you know? I had to get rid of all of my plaid and chainsaws, and I had to put on a nice dark coat and some slacks. It was a very different world. So I go in, and I knew I wasn't smart, because I was like, well, I make jerky, and now I'm going to sell real estate? This doesn't even connect. And I met this lovely man at a seminar I was attending as I was doing my education in Florida. And he comes out, and he had a cute little tie, kind of a simple guy, and he got talking to me, and I'm like, and I didn't mean to think this, I'm like, dude, you're not very smart. But he was making $1.5 million a year. And I'm like, and I kept going, but he's not that smart. I might be able to make some money in this business. If he can do this business, I mean, I have a chance, maybe, slim, but I still have a chance. And he was so sweet and sincere, but he wasn't that smart. He really wasn't. He kind of admitted it a couple of times, really kind of a simple guy. And he goes, but I hire good people. He goes, I got a good attorney, I got a good title company, and I don't do the paperwork because he said, I still don't get it. He said, but I know how to find people, I know how to solve their house problems, and he knew what to do. So I'm going to just tell you right now, if you get in business and you're like fronting, and you will, you're going to go, oh, remember what Sam said. I don't have to be that smart. You really don't. And I promise, have you ever met somebody that's doing well and you thought the same thing, they're not that smart? I mean, really, you're like, how the heck did they? So it's you. It's not how smart you are. It's what you believe. Completely what you believe. And it's kind of a thing. You have to kind of change a little bit. Change how you feel. Because if it's like the joke of the lady that goes, I feel tired, I'm always tired, and I want to feel better. And they go, well, what are you doing? She goes, well, I never exercise. I never drink water, I never eat anything healthy. And she goes, but tomorrow I will. And so the next day she goes to work and they have free food and all this stuff, and she doesn't eat well again, and she wonders why she's still tired. You've got to change a little bit, unless you like what you're getting. If you like what you're getting, keep with it. You know, if you know you're a people person, I've capitalized on that over and over. A lot of other things I'm not so good at. And I go, oh, transform that or make somebody else do it, okay? Now, how many of you heard about dream boards by any chance? A few of you? It's like a pause. It communicates slowly with the computer. I'm a firm believer. It worked for me. It may not work for you. It's entirely up to what you believe. But I made lots of dream boards over my business. Every time I have a new project or I have something to do, I'll get a bunch of photos I like. I'll cut up a magazine and choose the car I want to drive or the place I'd like to travel to. I love dream boards. So what they are more or less is you take a piece of poster board and you put stuff on there that inspires you. And you put it up in your office or wherever your computer is, and you look at it every day. It's something you need to repeat daily. It can't be shoved in some drawer and you think about it once a month. And so some of the things that have inspired me is I've been to Italy. I love barbecuing. My nephew, that's Clyde, all throughout the pictures. This is when I went back to school in Spain and went with the Travel Abroad program and lived in Spain for a while. So I love travel. I love food. And those things inspire me. It was nice going back and finishing college, by the way. I always was teasing. I said, I don't care what degree I get, but I want that degree up on the wall, and I'm going to get a special light that shines down on it. I just want the paper. And so I was able to do that, which I feel very blessed, because I was making so much money in real estate investing, I could do my own schedule, and I went back to school full-time while still doing real estate more or less full-time. But it was so flexible, I could do whatever I needed to get my schools and studies done. So other really beautiful blessings I've had, I've been on the news, the Salt Lake Tribune did a wonderful article on me, and those things inspire me. They make me feel good. When I went to the radio station and we laughed really hard until my side was hurting about, in my Utah for Kids book, that they love this, I don't know why. I have a section in the book about animal scat, or turds. So if you want to know what a porcupine turd looks like, I've got it in here. I mean, these are important things with kids. And so have fun. What inspires you? What quotes? I mean, one of my favorite quotes I've ever heard of all time from one of my mentors, he's 93 this year, very smart man, he was a heart surgeon. He said, Ralph Waldo Emerson said this. He said, "Do thy work and I shall know you." What work are you going to do? What inspires you? What work so I can know you, so the public knows you, so that you have a place? I mean, it's just really, actually, it's really for me. I'm selfish, I'm sorry, guys, but it's so much fun to be here for me, because I like to see what you guys are doing. I want to know. I'm going to give you my card. I hope you guys call me someday and go, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, I don't either, but let's talk about it. Let's figure this out. Or I just want to tell you I had the best success. And I'm like, yes, because everyone needs a cheerleader, especially if they're cute. I don't know. Okay, so often people want to know, where did you succeed? Where did you make mistakes? And, that's so important in this business. And so my story about being careful that ties into belief that could have been a mistake, but it led to a very big success is years ago, well, not too many, about 3 years ago, before Utah for Kids came out, my book, I went to publishers. I met with them and I said, I want to write this book. In fact, I've got some other books too. And I met them and I got this really good meeting with the publisher. He says, I want you to meet some of the staff. I want you to be able to talk with them with the idea. It's a really seems like a really solid idea. Let's meet. He said, I'm blocking 2 hours for the meeting. I'm like, wow. Okay, I'm ready. So I went to the meeting with the publisher and we sat down for about 3 hours. And he was lovely. He's the handsome quintessential, how do you say that word again? This tall, handsome, dapper gentleman, old school publishing, less really about the whole digital world. Very, very nice. I wanted to take him home too. But his staff, oh my gosh, they were like vultures. They were ruthless. There was this one, I'll call her chick. She was out for blood. And she goes, why do you think you could even write this? Who are you to write that book? I can go find some famous people to do the same thing, and then we can actually sell it. And I'm like, I was like, just bait me. And I was like, and she goes, really? And I was 3 hours of this, by the way. And every once in a while he'd step and he goes, yeah, but it's a really solid idea and she's a really fantastic artist. She goes, she's a great artist, but I can't sell this. Why did you even bring her here? I want my mommy. I was like, speed dial 911. There's a fire at this publishing house. Send the handsome boys to save me. And so I went home. And I remember looking, because I was about 3/4 of the way done with that book. And the illustrations took me much longer than Utah for Kids. I actually presented them a different book. And I went home, and for 3 days, you can't imagine. I mean, sure you can. All I did was like, I'm a loser. What was I thinking? I mean, I've done jerky, and I sold some houses and made some money, but why would I think I could write a book about kids? Or it wasn't even about kids. This was another children's book. I'm like, yeah. But I stopped after I did the self-pity. By the way, we call those wambulance. You can only be on the wambulance so long, and then you have to get off. So you just gotta go, So I got up and I said, okay, they didn't like the idea, but what did they say that was fair? What information did they give me? Because they're in the industry, they're selling books, they've sold them for many decades, they know their business. What could I take from that meeting? Because I just got the best consulting meeting I could have ever asked for free. Because people pay for that, I said, okay, all about marketing. Who are you? Marketing. I'm like, okay, well, I know who I am, but nobody else really probably cares. But they should, and then I'm like, stop. And so then I went, okay, but what do I know about marketing? Write something the market needs. So I went back to the 12 ideas, and that's when the Clyde and the Utah for Kids book really took some shape. It really, more than anything, I'm like, you know what, stupid publisher, I'm going to prove you wrong, and I'm going to bring you a copy of my book. You know, and so it kind of drove me to do something to kind of even just show them they were wrong. I was so mad. I'm like, do they know who I am? I'm like, I don't know who I am, but maybe they don't either. So here's the big thing, self-starter and listening to the wrong people. So if I give you anything today other than what just happened during that hour, is listen, only listen. I'm going to repeat this 5 or 6 times, so I want you to really listen. Only listen to people who have what you want. Once again, only listen to people who have what you want. Now, what on earth could that even mean? Now, if I want to run a marathon, and I need to train, will I go down where they sell Doritos? I like Doritos, by the way, with ranch. A little bit of the west side of me still. But will I go to where they sell candy bars and ranch and wait for whoever walks up and starts buying, a whole cartload of it and say, will you teach me how to run a marathon? Are they the right person to ask for that type of advice or consulting? You know, if I want to train for something, if I want to do something, I only listen to people who have what I want. It's so important. So if I want to be financially fit, and we all do. I know we all do. I mean, that's probably one of the big reasons why we're all, even in school, is we want the means, the financial means to be where we want to be. And so, but if I listen to the wrong people in real estate investing, for example, I did. I paid like $5,000 for the seminar. I went out to Florida. They all are in Florida, oddly enough. A lot of them are in Florida. So I go to the real estate investing class, and I take my notes. I have a binder full, and I implement the ideas he recommended on marketing and how to sell houses and how to find buyers and sellers. And I got home, it wasn't really working. And years later, I found out he had never done any of it. It was all theory. He's like, well, this sounds good. I'm going to teach that today. And then I'm trying. I gave him some money, and I thought it was stuff he had actually done. And then I found investors that had been in the trenches, people that did know what worked and didn't work. And I was like, oh, I was listening to. But sometimes you don't know. So if you are listening, even to me, or anyone you ever listen to any of these speeches, find out a little bit about them, as much as you can. I mean, you guys are really savvy now with the iPads and the phones, and you can find out. I mean, I even Googled myself the other day to see what comes up. I was like, oh, you know, what information is out there? And so find out if they can give you the advice. I have lost a lot of money, and I've made a lot of money. And so listen to the right people about certain things. And there are certain things I would not give any advice to you because I'm not the right person for that. But in the areas, like I said in the beginning of my presentation, there are things I will share with you because I have seen it work, and I've seen it work over and over and over and over in different markets even. So self-starter, for me, I don't take no for an answer. It's like the publishing and the book. I'm going to find a way. I've always been that way. I've been a little quirky and a little odd and very loud. My poor mother, you know. I came home from school one day, I'm like, Mom, what's a narc? And she goes, what did you do? And I'm like, what? So I'm get in trouble sometimes. But so once again, only listen to people who have what you want. If you want this and they've done it, listen to them. And anybody else, I love it when friends at school, especially college, oh yeah, and you guys debate and talk, and I'm like, and I've done it, you know, you're like cool, you got some cool ideas, but did it work? Can you implement it? Can you make money from it? Are you going to be more joyful because of it? So one, please, biggest, most important thing, okay? I'm serious, out of everything I could tell you today. All right. So, being an author, I don't know, is my hair that much different? Jerky lady, Sam. Like people always go, hey, you were the jerky lady. I'm like, yep, I was. People know me. I don't know why. I don't know if anybody ever wants that title, but biggest mistake there, which I didn't know because it was my first real big business choice. Man, I worked hard. I'm not exaggerating. During the months of December, when I implemented a gift basket plan and program, I sold baskets to the resorts and all over the country, and I picked up accounts, and I sold to construction companies. So my business all of a sudden became a gift basket business, not a jerky business. I worked 93 hours in 1 week. The following week, I worked about 87, and I went to the doctor, because I was mid-20s. I'm like, I don't know what's wrong. He's like, what the heck have you been doing? I'm like, seriously, I don't have any idea what's wrong with me. He says, well, you're toned and you're fit, but what have you been doing, girl? And I'm like, I don't know, 93 hours. He says, 93 hours of what? I didn't sit. I mean, it's standing the whole time. And then I'm like, I think I have chest pains. And he goes, yeah. So not smart. You know, make better decisions. You don't have to work that hard, and you don't have to be that smart to make money, I promise. Now, I wouldn't trade it. It was fun. I met some crazy people, and it's part of me, and I'm very grateful for it. But big mistake, too many hours and too hard. Don't do it your body. The next thing is I stepped into real estate, and I thought it was pretty cool, and I was cashing big checks. But you had to be really careful in that business because more was at stake. If you weren't educated, you could make an error and a legal issue. You had to be very careful. And so the stress was different there. I made great money, but I remember being going, I'm holding 5 homes right now. I had 5 homes I was rehabbing at one time. It was the most I ever did in a sitting. And we needed to find $1 million in cash to fund one of these mortgages or several mortgages on the homes, or we were in big trouble. And we had to find it in 48 hours. It was pretty stressful sometimes, but we did it. It was amazing to me, even. I'm like, thanks, God. You know, so, but great checks, great. I went to, every year I went somewhere beautiful. I went first class or business class, as they called it, to Europe. I didn't want to get off the plane. I said, forget the vacation. These cute stewardess and guys and girls, they're like, Mademoiselle. I'm like, I mean, business class was a whole different world. I mean, even the people flying, I'm like, wow. So it was pretty fantastic and pretty amazing. But then also, live hard, die hard. You know, seriously, it was a lot of fun, and everyone reads the news. So it was get off the roller coaster as fast as you can once 2008 started happening. So, and then after that, I went, okay, I've done some things, and now I really want to go back to something. I don't really care for a lot of the snakes in the real estate world. I'm a little too fluffy for them. Some of them are pretty tight. But writing kids' books kind of was a fit. Kids and we get along pretty well. So, and it was what was beautiful about that business is I believe it was, who's the mentor? I'll come to me. But the whole idea of a repeated sell. You don't have to keep we keep printing the book, but I don't have to keep redoing the book, you know, updating it. But I sell it again, and I sell it again, and I don't really do anything extra to a certain degree. So really some powerful things. So kind of a little background on successes and mistakes. Check the time. Okay, so for me, once again, what Mr. Lambert said is it's who you know, which is true, but you don't have to know anyone important. Let's clarify that. I was always like, I don't know anyone important, I guess I'm screwed. You know, and so it's who you'll meet, who will come into your path, who you don't right now, who you may later on connect through me or someone else, or it's not always who you know, it's someone maybe you know that knows, that knows. But anyway, so when I decided to write Utah for Kids and I got my spanking from the publisher, I decided I was going to do some extra work on the side. And by talking to people and doing some consulting, I met someone who used to work for Disney. He retired. He used to work Eisner, worked with Eisner. He's in the top 3 tier of the company. And super creative and artist. And he's retired and very cute with his little suspenders sometimes, cute little guy, you know. And once I found out he worked for Disney, I was on that like a hot rock. I'm like, so Ron, can I come by later for hot chocolate, you know? And he's like, what do you want, Samantha? And I'm like, I have this idea, will you give me some direction? And I had been drawing the fardoodles, is the little name I came up for them. I was drawing these fardoodles, and I had Utah for Kids, and they were separate ideas for me. And I showed him both ideas, and I said, you know, how can I expand that? Because it's kind of the concept of Disney and other things that, since he knows about artwork, what can I do with these little creatures? Because they keep popping up. They just, one day I drew them, and I'm like, what is that? Where did that come from? And I was so excited, because my nephew loved them, because he always had this red, crazy hair. So the first little male I came up with was kind of about Clyde. This fun, crazy little moments we do, these adventures. And the best thing about mentors and power teams for me is Ron said, Samantha, you're making a big mistake. And I'm like, making a mistake? I don't want to make mistakes, that costs money. And he goes, no, listen to me. He goes, I want you to combine them. Why would you make them separate? And I said, Ron, do you have any idea what you just said? I'm ready to print Utah for Kids. In fact, I've been teaching myself InDesign. You have any idea how hard that is going to be for me to draw a whole variety of characters and add them now in there? He goes, I don't care how hard it is, you're making a mistake. And I was like, okay, you're free, but you're smart. And I went home and I was like, oh, because you just, you know, when you have something done and you're excited to run with it. Now I had to kind of stop and change gears and draw some fardoodles, which would take a few months, you know. And I actually did it in under like 2 weeks because I wanted to print the book. And so he gave me some direction. I said, how many times do the little creatures have to be in the damn book? And he goes, our formula at Disney was if we do a book, Mickey Mouse has to show up 20% of the time. I said, okay, it's 224 pages. That's how many illustrations. And I decided how many to put in the book. And he was right. They really, I'm expanding this idea, hopefully nationally soon, please, 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 please. But he was completely right. So you'll find people, you'll find mentors, you'll find people that will, I mean, I stumbled on him, and he's darling. He's actually really a smart guy, too. So the Walt Disney contact. For me, when I think about this is who do I have, and I love, because I'm an artist, I like being visual, so I love drawing these. They really help me decide what I'm trying to do. If I'm actually doing a project, some people call them focus wheels, other people call them, I call it the power team, but it's a way for me to kind of develop an idea. I'm like, okay, this is what I want, what other things tie to it? If I want to write a book, Utah for Kids, what do I have to do to tie to it? So this has been very helpful for me. And additional training and schooling has been a big part of that for me.
What's BBB say?
Oh, Better Business Bureau. Thank you. Which I have been a member. I'm not currently, but for years with the real estate business, I was a member because real estate people want to know you're credible. So I tried to find every way to show my credibility in that business. So it was huge. It's important to be part of those. So find avenues to show who you are by not saying who you are. Let other people talk about it. So I am a firm believer, again, associate with the right people. This might be someone you know or don't know. Most of you probably would know of George Ross from The Apprentice, Ed Catmull. So I go to seminars. Often these people speak for free. This was an event at the library, Salt Lake City Library, that was free. The others were not. But you can find King's English if you're into writing or you want to consider that. They are a local bookstore, and they are lovely. They have events all the time where you can access artists, authors, and it can be not because you want to be an author, it's because you want to access a certain genre of writing that they can teach you more about. So find people, go to the events. Well, you're obviously doing that right now, too, by taking this class. Yamaguchi was funny. She decided she wasn't going to skate as much anymore, and her daughters told her, Mom, you should write a kid's book. And so she wrote this funny little picture book about a pig. And her daughter was like 8, and she brought this list to her, and she goes, Mom, seriously, you got to use some bigger words. She goes, you need to use these words in the book. So even your kids or people you care about can be part of the process. It's a lot of fun. Andrew Stanton is lovely. I met him at the Sundance Film Festival, which is coming up. Now, if you pay attention, there are free resources everywhere, because I get the budget. I get it. I met him at, I think I spent $10 at the Egyptian Theater. They offer panels at the Sundance Film Festival. Now, if you get on the website and you look for panels, all of them, many of them are free. Now, it'll talk about a credential. You can get in immediately if you have the little name tag. But if you wait in the wait list line and you're there early, I get into everything for free. And they have panels, they have artists, musicians, directors, writers, and really interesting people that you can for a moment associate with. And it's lovely. And the Sundance Film Festival, I like the movies, but I actually have enjoyed the panels for years so much better. Oh, it's so fantastic. But get there early and get in the wait list line, and you'll get in. It's a great free resource, actually. All right, marketing. So, marketing, Utah for Kids. I did some events. We can talk about, if you ever have some questions, how to host an event and not spend any money or very little money. Hill Air Force Base, one of my best fun events. The kids would make these little rockets, and then they would launch them with this little hand thing, and then they saw all the people watching the rocket after. It was much fun. And it was free publicity.
Sam, you want to give away a copy of your book that you would sign?
Oh, well, I would love to. I brought you one also, and I'll pass the cards if you guys can send a pack back.
Yeah.
And then...
So who are you going to give it to?
Well, I don't know.
Who wants one?
Whoever sends me an email, I'll mail you a copy of the book.
All right.
And how does that mean it's only one person? I didn't do really very well in math. Actually, I really like math. So what was the deal? If you send me? All right.
You got the email address? You're going to get it on that card.
So it's all about your story. Who are you? So when you go out to find people for money, and I have two last little things to share. Well, one really, and then I'll finish. Tell your story. People care. Make it fun, though. You know, I did lemonade stands when I was a little kid, and I loved it. And it's made me excited to do business my whole life. I loved it. The ups and the downs. Tell your story, because that's the only reason why people buy cars. That's the only reason why people buy your widget, your service. That's the only reason why maybe even you come here, is there might be something you get out of it emotionally. Tell a good story, all right? And for me, and it's always will be, and the last thing that was on my speech, which we can get into, is just how you capture data. On my website, if you want to visit how I capture information and data, I do it on Weebly. It's free, once again. So today, when I say capture data, capture the business card, capture the information from people, and reach out to them.
Yes. I have one very important question for you.
Shoot.
What kind of energy drink is this?
Yeah, don't you wish? It's natural. I even didn't drink coffee just for you guys, because it'd be catastrophic. So remember, here's our last quote. Let's see if it'll go to it.
Would you like
go.
some of Sam's energy? Raise your hand.
Oh, you don't want it.
Okay.
Thank you so much, you guys.
Big hand for Sam.